What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Raider Alex back with yet another video for you guys. And the latest buzz speculation is growing around the possibility of quarterback Russell Wilson making a move to the Las Vegas Raiders in this upcoming offseason. A notable NFL executive, speaking anonymously, shared insights suggesting that the Raiders could be a prime landing spot for Russell Wilson. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the executive highlighted the Raiders' need for a veteran quarterback and pointed out that the Raiders was among Russell Wilson's initial preferred destinations before he ultimately got traded to Denver. Russell Wilson would stay in the AFC West on the West Coast, which adds an appeal. And he also noted that Russell Wilson's wife, Sierra, could potentially pursue a residency as a live performer in Las Vegas. The quarterback situation in Denver is also contributing to this speculation, as it seems that the Broncos are very likely to part ways with Russell Wilson during the offseason. The Broncos ultimately ended up sitting Russell Wilson for the final 2 games of the regular season, driven by financial considerations. It looks like the Broncos were trying to maintain flexibility and avoid significant guaranteed payments to Wilson in case of an injury. So it really seems like the Russell Wilson Denver Broncos experiment has failed for them, and there's a possibility that Russell Wilson could be on the open market here soon. Now, before, I've seen the Russell Wilson name pop up when it comes to the potential quarterbacks moving forward for the Raiders. And I initially was not a huge fan of Russell Wilson because, I understood that he was with the Broncos. I was under the assumption that if we wanted him, we were going to have to trade some type of assets to get him. And then not only that, he's got that huge contract that he signed with Denver. So I was not interested in that at all. But given the circumstances, I think Russell Wilson could be a very intriguing option for us, especially if he hits the open market, which, I'm pretty surprised about. I thought Sean Payton would have gone a little bit longer with Russell Wilson before he made a move like this. It's kind of odd too because, Russell Wilson in the first season under Nathaniel Hackett, yes, he did look very bad out there. But this year with Sean Payton, he did a lot better. Really, when I saw that Denver team, I didn't see as Russell Wilson being the biggest problem on their roster, and ultimately he did pretty well for them. If you look at the 2023 stats for Russell Wilson, he threw for a little bit over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdown passes. He was top 10 in this category. He had 8 interceptions, and this is all in 15 games since he did not play the last 2 regular season games with the Broncos. So really, those are some pretty solid numbers. Let's be honest, if we got this type of production from our quarterback last season, then I think the Raiders would have been in a prime position to make the playoffs. Last year, we definitely underperformed at the quarterback position from a production standpoint. Jimmy Garoppolo just did not pan out for us. He did not live up to the expectations. And then after that, we had to roll with the 4th round rookie quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. And look, O'Connell is a nice quarterback prospect, but at the end of the day, he is a rookie. And it's not a surprise to me that, we had some up and down play from O'Connell. But really, last season, if the Raiders would have had a veteran like Russell Wilson, just a guy that can give you these type of numbers. And not only that, you also have to take into consideration that Russell Wilson rushed for 341 yards this season. So he also gives you that aspect to your offense. So really, if this report is true, if Russell Wilson's going to hit the open market, then I think he's a pretty solid choice for the Raiders to consider, especially if we're going to go the veteran quarterback route when it comes to free agency. I think Russell Wilson would be on the top of my list. You got other guys like Kirk Cousins as well, but Kirk Cousins, he's a gunslinger, but he is coming off of a big injury. He throws a lot of interceptions, and I would like to have a mobile quarterback, and Russell Wilson gives you just that. He's familiar with the AFC West. It would really just come down to the contract situation. If you can sign him for a reasonable contract, and most importantly, the length of the contract, you don't want to sign him to 3 or 4 years. If you can get him on a 1 or 2 year deal, I think that would be a very great situation for the Raiders, especially considering the fact too that if you get a guy like Russell Wilson, a veteran quarterback, an established quarterback, then the Raiders can move into the draft this year in the 1st round, and at that situation, they're not really obligated to do anything in the 1st round. They're not desperate for a quarterback. Now, I still think that if there's a quarterback they really like on their board that's attainable, that you can maybe trade up for at a reasonable price, or if a certain quarterback falls to their laps, then they should still go ahead and make that move. But, you know, you go into the first round, you go into the draft not being desperate to trade up for one of these top quarterbacks and give up the farm. And then if you ultimately do end up getting a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, you know, a quarterback that maybe you feel like isn't ready to start day one, well, now you're in a perfect situation. You can have Russell Wilson out there for a year or two, let the rookie sit, develop, learn the playbook, and then, you know, same thing with Aiden O'Connell as well. You can let him get more experience from a veteran like Russell Wilson. The reason I would like this move too is because I think it's a pretty low risk with a potential high reward type of signing for the Raiders. Look, worst case scenario with Russell Wilson, if you can sign a 1 or 2 year deal, I think you're at the very least getting a competent starting quarterback, and then at the very least he's just a very good bridge quarterback for this team. But at the same time, he also has the potential. I mean, what if the change of scenery really helps him out with the new offensive coordinator on this team? I mean, I think the Raiders have much better weapons than he had back in Denver. He's never had a wide receiver like Devontae Adams. You know, what if we get a glimpse of Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson? Well, in that scenario, I mean, the Raiders are going to be in a very good spot. Wilson could bring a lot of stability to the quarterback position and potentially elevate the Raiders to a serious playoff contender. The Raiders, despite the lack of production we got from the quarterback position and just the offense in general, the Raiders were still 8-9 and very close from making the playoffs. I think you get a guy like Russell Wilson that can give you the type of numbers he had last season, an experienced guy like him. You know, I think this team could have easily been 1 or 2 games better, and that very likely could have put us in the playoffs. It would definitely make the AFC West very interesting. And, you know, speaking of the AFC West, I did want to touch on this subject very briefly. And it looks like the Los Angeles Chargers have officially secured Jim Harbaugh. He will be their new head coach. And I mean, what I got to say to this move, I mean, kudos to them. That is a good move for them. It's a huge upgrade from Brandon Staley. So, you know, you got to give them some props there. But at the same time, look, it's not a heartbreaker for me. I'm not out here super worried about the Chargers taking over the AFC West. At the end of the day, this division is still ran through the Chiefs. And yes, the Chargers did get better, but at the end of the day, they were 5-12 this season. Year in and year out, they seem to continuously choke. They seem to be like the Clippers of the NFL. And Harbaugh is a good coach. He should bring some stability to their franchise, but at the same time, I don't care how you slice it, being out of the NFL for 9 years isn't going to be easy at all. That's a long time. I mean, the NFL was so much different the last time he coached under the 49ers. Also, too, the last season he was there when he didn't have his offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, they underachieved. It seems like there's been a lot of reports, too, that Harbaugh has had a lot of tension with upper management with the 49ers and even recently with Michigan. So, you know, you'll have to pay attention to how Harbaugh is going to mesh with the Chargers upper management. And look, at the end of the day, the Raiders do have the least experienced coach in the division. But what I like about Antonio Pierce is you can tell the guy is not going to be intimidated by any type of pedigree. Last year, he went toe-to-toe against Andy Reid. We were able to beat them on the road. And I think we also got to take into consideration that Antonio Pierce seems like he has revived the Raider Nation. I mean, when was the last time you really felt this excited and, you know, this united as a fan base when it comes to next season? I think AP did a good job of just setting the tone for the Raiders moving forward. I think us as a fan base, we got to get behind and rally behind this team. And we know the players are behind Antonio Pierce and they'll fight through hell and back for a guy like him. You know, will the Broncos do that for a guy like Sean Payton, or will the Chargers do that for a guy like Jim Harbaugh, even though they have higher resumes? You know, that's to be seen. The Raiders have their guy, and it's going to be competitive as hell next year in the AFC West. But at the end of the day, I think the Raiders have the same amount of probabilities as the Chargers or the Broncos to compete with the Chiefs to steal the division next year. So that's just my thoughts and opinions on that. You know, let's not panic. You know, I remember a couple years ago, Russell Wilson joined the Broncos, and a lot of people were like, oh, what are the Raiders doing? We're falling behind the wheel. We're falling asleep. What ended up happening there? It seems like he's going to leave after 2 seasons. Same with Sean Payton. You know, the jury's still out on him. So, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. But Raider Nation, those are my thoughts, opinions on Russell Wilson potentially coming to the Raiders. I definitely want to get your guys' feedback on that. Also, let me know what you guys think about Harbaugh going to the Chargers. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that's all for you guys in today's video. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.